Hi, and welcome to the I Teach Myself podcast. My name is Matthew Miniman, and this is episode 105, Game of Thrones miniseries, episode 5. What can the White Walkers teach us about maintenance windows? So, White Walkers, they are the ultimate bad guys in the Game of Thrones. Song of Ice and Fire, whatever, they are the bad guys. They're the ones that everybody should be trying to fight, but they choose to fight between themselves. And the whole concept of White Walkers is kind of just a myth in the world when we come into it in the series Game of Thrones, because the White Walkers have been just gone for thousands of years. They were myths. People now attribute all of the actions of the White Walkers to the wildlings north of the Wall, and the purpose of the Watchers on the Wall seems to be just to, keep the wildlings out of the North Kingdom. But that's not it. Like the White Walkers are basically just consume all life, and the White Walkers originally were created by the children of the trees, or the children of the forest, to destroy man, but then they lost control of the White Walkers, and therefore had to team up with the first men to then kill off the White Walkers, which they ended up not doing, which then somehow they end up being destroyed by a little girl with a knife, which is really weird. Man, douchebag pair really fucked that up. Anyway, and George R. R. Martin's not doing himself any favors by not finishing the fucking story. Anyway, let's continue this. So the normal idea of the White Walkers is that they are a menace, and there's supposed to be excursions north of the Wall to kind of help deal with the White Walker threat, keep them down, to make sure that the wall is in good repair, that there's not anything massing north of the Wall. There's supposed to be excursions that do this. And that's a task that needs scheduling, and they need to build a team to do it. They need to have a goal, a task, a time frame. They need to have contact. They need to make sure that they come back at a certain point. Basically, there needs to be a plan for these excursions. And as we come into the world in the Game of Thrones, these sort of excursions have kind of stopped because they don't feel like they're productive. It's a sort of waste of time. Oh, there's nothing north of the Wall. They're just wildlings. There's no way there's no way they can harm this wall. Blah, blah, blah. Basically, this whole thing. And which is fair. I mean, it's been thousands of years. Nothing's happened. So why would anything bad ever happen if nothing bad has ever happened in over 1,000 years? Yeah. Why? Well, so that's kind of the fallacy that a lot of organizations get. When stuff is working well, stuff will always work well, right? Like it's the fallacy of the IT department. It's the unfortunate situation that an IT department gets put into, because when things work well, what do they pay us for? What do they pay IT for when things work well? Because you guys aren't doing anything. You're not fixing problems. You're not building servers. You're just there, right? Like you're just an expense. That's it. And then when things are breaking, what do we pay you for? Why isn't this stuff working properly? So it's kind of, the IT department kind of loses either way, because again, it's an expense department, and when things don't work, it sucks. And when things work, it kind of sucks because nobody really thinks that it's worth it to spend it on IT. But that's kind of false thinking, because when things are working, when your services work, when your operations work, when your servers are working, your workstations are working, everything's working properly, it is still important to perform maintenance. And when things aren't working, that's even more important to then make sure that your maintenance is working. And So maintenance windows are what you utilize to kind of perform those tasks. Maintenance windows, if you don't understand the concept, is basically these are the periods of time in which the servers, services, and workstations can go down so that they can be worked on to fix. And maintenance windows are important because they provide a time for your IT department to do their fucking job. And the reason why I say it like that is that there is a lot of businesses, especially businesses that operate 24/7, have a real aversion to maintenance windows. Like they don't like maintenance windows as a concept because, well, we can never be down. That's the fallacy that they fall into. And the whole problem with that kind of thought process is if you think you can never be down because you do business 24/7, then you are accepting the fact that you are going to be down and you're going to be down hard. So for maintenance windows, it needs to be something that is planned, or you're going to be forced into one and you don't know when you're going to be out of that maintenance window. So let's track this back a little bit. So maintenance windows, what they are, we've discussed that they're windows where IT can work on things and perform maintenance tasks, hence the name maintenance windows. And they are intentional for that purpose. They are intentional for the purpose of making changes, working and fixing problems, working with vendors, whatever. They are periods of time in which that can happen, which there can be outage, which the rest of the organization can plan on that. So they have to be well defined. So that's the primary aspect of a maintenance window. They have to be well defined. Not only do they have to be defined by when they are going to happen, but they need to be well defined by how long they're going to be. So when you have a maintenance window and you are identifying what you're working on, you also need to assume how much time you're going to need. Now, you can't just say all of the time in the world, but you have to scope it kind of down to the not necessarily the bare minimum, but enough time for the task to be completed with issues that are going to crop up. That's how you can plan on it. Now, luckily, modern maintenance windows can be relatively short because most operations don't take a whole lot of time. Updates and things like that can be completed in, an hour, less than an hour, most of them. But if you have something like a database maintenance window or something like that, where your database has to be brought down or put into a non-optimal state, that can take hours and hours and hours. So you need to have some sort of maintenance window that is planned for that period of time. And a maintenance window doesn't necessarily have to be a hard down. It can be a soft down where, hey, you're going to experience outages during this period of time. It just needs to be communicated. And that's the other piece of this. So one, a maintenance window needs to be defined by how long and when it's going to happen. And then two, a maintenance window must be communicated. There must be communication that goes out to the stakeholders in the organization. And they need to also then disseminate the information about the maintenance window down the chain so that everybody can understand when there's going to be a maintenance window. And it's important to identify to the individuals what there's a maintenance window of. Now, you don't necessarily have to tell them why there's a maintenance window. Like, you don't have to say, hey, we're updating servers or we're installing this feature. Though, if you can include that information, it does make acceptance of maintenance windows much smoother. But, you just want to make sure that when individuals do something or attempt an operation and they're blocked, they understand and know why. You can say, hey, this maintenance window is popping up. You guys don't have to do anything, but you won't be able to do this thing or this thing. And that does bring us to the next aspect of maintenance windows. you have to identify what the responsibilities of other people might be after or during the maintenance window. And so, if you're in a hospital and you say, hey, we have a maintenance window for our EMR during this period, and it's going to extend past the length of a patient's stay. So during this period of time, we will be moving to paper records. Those are things that you have to communicate as well. So you do have to provide guidance on what alternatives there might be during that work period if there's going to need to be work done during that time period. Especially if you're, like I said, if you have an organization or an enterprise that is working 24/7 or has responsibilities 24/7. So all that being said, again, the big aspect of this that kind of brings the whole thing down is that if you don't have a maintenance window, if you never perform maintenance on a task, your maintenance tasks are going to slowly build up and get out of control. Much like how the White Walkers slowly built their army up over generations, years and years and years. And all of a sudden it was this massive, massive army that came down from the north and threatened to kill everybody, including sweep down the entirety of Westeros to destroy the kingdom, which is exactly what can happen in your organization. You can have your entire server base just become inoperable if you don't have maintenance windows. And, I'll put it like this. I used to work at a hotel, and this hotels operate 24/7. And this wasn't just a hotel, it was a resort. So it had restaurants, it had bars, it had room service. And in order to take payment, they had a payment processor on site. And that payment processor, the instructions were that thing could never go down, because as soon as it goes down, we can no longer take payment, we can no longer charge guests, and we lose out on money. And that's a problem. So highlight that, circle that fucking thing right there. That's a huge goddamn problem. And the specific processor operated on a system, I don't know if I've ever talked about it, but it's called AS400. Some know it as green screen, but basically AS400 is an old operating structure that really IBM built, and so many fucking people have just like latched on and kept this fucking thing going, that it's kind of ubiquitous with poorly maintained legacy software. I mean, it fucking works. Like, it really does. But oh my fucking God, if you have ever seen an AS400 green screen and you're just like, whoa, this is older than I am, like, that's a fucking problem. It really does. It really feels and operates like it is older than really anybody on the planet. It is awful, even older than, Anyway, whole point being is that this fucking thing needs maintenance because of how fucking old it is. Yet you can't bring it down because you need to take payment. And so then when I was working at this hotel, the issue that occurred was one night, the fucking payment processor just stopped working. All the services were running. It definitely thought it was working. We could run test transactions through all the normal functions, but no communication was happening over the fucking AS400. Like, there were no transactions going. And so we fiddled with it, and we were forced into a maintenance window. We had to perform tests. We had to identify everything. And again, it was a whole problem. And it was one of those where it was overnight, and as soon as it stopped, everybody on the fucking planet had to get called in to work on this goddamn problem. Every person who worked in IT had to get brought up in case they were needed. And so this maintenance window lasted until one of the system administrators are like, we just have to power this fucking thing off and power it back on, which is a dicey process because this was also on legacy AS400 hardware. And so turning that off and on is not as simple as, pressing the power button. You have to bring it down gracefully and then bring it back up. And that's an hour-long process by itself, because that's how AS400 is. And so we did that. We ended up having to do that. And the whole process ended up, bringing the organization down for 4 hours while we tested, brought the system back up, tested again, identified root cause, did root cause analysis, and brought this thing back into a working state. But then after that, nobody trusted anything that happened any night. So it was always like, is it going to happen again? When is it going to happen again? When is it going to happen again? And if we had just had a normal maintenance window where that bitch got rebooted once a month, once a week, I don't know, fucking once a year even, that thing had been powered on for 5 years before we had rebooted it. If we had some sort of reboot schedule or maintenance window on that system at a regular process, we would not have had that emergency down situation. We would not have been down for 4 hours. There would not have been this broken trust. And we would have been able to progress with the rest of the maintenance tasks and never been aware that there was some sort of memory leak on the NIC of the AS400 that ran the transactions. We were able to run transactions because we were pushing them directly from the console of the device into the AS400. So it was able to process stuff, but the transaction network interface just shit the bed because there's some sort of memory leak issue. I don't know if it was memory leak, but that's essentially what it was. Is over time, it would just build up, and then it just wouldn't work, and you had to reboot the machine. And that's what happens. And calling IBM and finally getting IBM vendor to tell us what the root cause was the next day, because IBM doesn't work after hours. You can't depend on a vendor to work for you. You have to work on your own time. But when IBM came in, it's like, oh yeah, this is a known issue. If you reboot your system every now and then, you never run into the problem. And like, they knew about it, and you could tell us that. Like, they showed us the buffer log, and it's like, yeah, this thing just shit the bed because you've never rebooted it. And so, yeah, the maintenance windows will help prevent that. They'll help prevent the White Walker horde from coming down and just destroying your organization. And when you do maintenance windows, you do have to have well-defined goals. So you can't just be like, oh, we're just going to have a maintenance window and then not do anything. Like, when you have a maintenance window, you actually have to have a task that you are performing. So that's like number 4. So 1 is define your maintenance window, time, period, and time length. 2, define what you're doing. Define who's doing it. That's another one. Define who's doing it. You can't just say we're going to have a maintenance window and we're going to do this. You also have to be like, yeah, it's going to be these 3 guys. It's going to be this team. It's going to be Jerry because we fucking hate Jerry. And then, notify everybody. Notify everybody who's involved. Notify those stakeholders to make sure that they understand who is doing what. And make sure that whatever tasks you've laid out for yourself in your maintenance window, that you have really identified that they're possible. Now, there's a whole lot of change control that could happen before you do a maintenance window, which I guess is a really good thing to do as well. You can plan for your maintenance window and have your change control board identify different steps and areas where if there's failure or if there's an issue, how are you going to roll back and how long that's going to take, because recovery can take longer than the actual maintenance process. So if you break something in your maintenance window, how are you going to roll back? So make sure you have all those plans in place before you roll into your maintenance window, because the last thing you want to do is you want to break that maintenance window time period, make your maintenance window take longer than it is, and then leave something broken because you didn't anticipate that issue beforehand. Because then people are going to stop trusting your maintenance windows. They're not going to allow you to have them. And then you're just going to get overrun by the zombie horde of the deathless others. And it's going to destroy the wall, your cities, your castle, your kingdom, and you're going to have to rely on some little girl with a knife to finally put everything right, to rights. Well, that's all I have today, guys. I hope you all have